How are you? How you doing?
I'm very well. This is one of my favorite ones because my father, who's extremely British
Yeah,
and insists on having, the Queen's English or the King's English in this case
yeah.
at all times. If you say, "How are you?" and you say good, he says, "You're not good, you're well." So I tend to answer with, "I'm well." And that voice, at 51, that voice is still in my head.
How do you
Dad,
do?
say good. Yeah.
I mean, this is a little bit problematic though, because we have this I suppose generic response. If somebody says,
Yeah.
"How are you?" you say, "Well," or "good," as the
Yeah,
case may be.
absolutely.
But that's not necessarily true, and I'm not pretty sure that most people aren't really interested in the real answer if we're not having a good day, right?
That's right. And what I want to call into question here is that, why this question of how are you doesn't work for our mental
Yeah,
health.
yeah.
So my mission is to challenge the ways that we do things and to come up with better alternatives, right?
Hmm.
And so actually understanding that asking someone how are you is almost like a trick question
Yeah.
for a person who's already got a brain that's under pressure. And there's a really good scientific reason behind that. And that is that brains under pressure struggle to problem solve.
Hmm.
So that when you ask someone who is already feeling a bit overwhelmed, you can see in their eyes the emotions are close to the surface. The part of their brain that does good problem solving
Yeah.
is literally offline. And so what you're doing is you're asking them to solve a few problems.
Hmm.
Like you said, not only how am I going to explain or sum up how I'm feeling when it's not great,
Yeah.
how am I going to say it to you in a way that doesn't completely overwhelm the situation? And how am I going to do this maybe in a work or a family setting where it might not be appropriate to tell you all the details?
Yeah, exactly. So, how do we do this better? As you say, particularly when we're talking with people who may be struggling with their mental health for a variety of reasons. How do we greet in a more inclusive and welcoming and empathetic way, Julia?
Yeah. And I say this from experience from being on the receiving end of information and communication like this
Hmm.
is that a better way to do it is to check in using questions that don't demand a response.
Okay.
So what we're trying to say to the person that we're reaching out to is, I'm here. I want to remind you that I'm here for you, but I don't want to put you on the spot and demand that you respond to me immediately, because we've all been there where we don't want to answer the phone.
Yes.
We don't want to, send that return text.
Yep.
So I like these check-in questions, and I've learned this from other people who have done this for me at times when I've been in a really low mood or a very high anxiety state. And so some really good examples, I've got some here, some ideas that you can use because I'm all about practical, right?
Yep.
One of them was just checking in.
Hmm.
So starting a message or a text or a conversation, hey, just checking in.
Yep.
I'm letting you know I'm here, but you don't have to do anything about
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
No, that's cool.
Another one was just saying, been thinking about you. And so acknowledging that I may, you might have been under a pressure at the
Yep.
moment, or I'm noticing that there's a lot going on in your world and you've been on my mind.
Can we put
And
some Can we
that
put some
feels nice.
spiritual into that as well, and say, quick text? You've been on my mind at the moment. Anything I can pray for you at the moment? Is that okay, or is that too
Absolutely.
much pressure again?
Depending on where that person is. To be honest, if we're talking along this topic, I wouldn't be asking them.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd be saying to them, "You're on my heart. You're in my prayers. I've been thinking about you." So
Yeah.
what you're doing is you are reaching out to them
Okay.
without demanding a response.
No,
So
that's
in
great.
this case, while it's perfectly okay normally, in this case, I wouldn't do it quite like that.
Hmm.
And then the third one I've got is, I'm going to keep touching base so that you know that I'm here.
Wow.
So, I mean, these are just templates, but what we're saying is, hey, be warned. I'm here. I've got eyes on you. I'm
Yeah.
going to keep turning up.
Yeah.
And these aren't super practical. On another week, we're going to chat about some more practical things. These are those first point of calls.
Yeah.
These are those first pieces of information that just remind somebody that you're here. And I had this at a time in my life that I was in really, like difficult mental health challenges,
Hmm.
and just had this wonderful friend who lived out of town,
Yeah.
possibly felt like there wasn't much she could do for me.
Hmm.
And she would just be like, "Hey, babe, just thinking about you,
Yeah.
just checking in, end of story." And I so appreciated the effort in and not having the demand coming out.
No, that is good practical stuff. And hey, we want to get this sort of stuff right, but we just
Yeah.
tend to go back to our default settings and stumble our way clumsily through trying to help, but maybe becoming part of the problem. So this is really good practical stuff on ways
Yeah.
where we can come alongside, but not being all up in the face of people who are struggling at the moment. Now, you got a whole bunch of other tips and tricks in this regard. Big on Instagram, I hear.
Yeah.
Instagram's a place to
Yeah.
go, but hey, all over the
Yeah.
socials, Facebook and Instagram, people can find some more practical advice on how to engage with people who are perhaps struggling with their mental health. Julia, really appreciate what you do. Thank you so much for your mahi. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being on the program today.
Absolute pleasure.